Welcome back to App Stories. Today's show is brought to you by Vitally. I'm John Voorhees, and with me is Federico Viticci. Hey, Federico.
Hello, John. How are you?
I'm feeling really good. I mean, we're here to award some awards. We're here to do the 2023 MacStories Selects Awards. And as I said in the intro to our piece that we published alongside this podcast, this time of year feels kind of like the wrap up to our year because, we really hit the ground running at WWDC, and we've got 7 months of activity. Whether it's writing our summer series, getting ready for our reviews, covering all the apps that come out in the fall, or the MacStories Selects Awards. And this is really how we wrap up that period of time. We've got lots going on other times of the year, but this is really kind of the bookend to the main event of our year, which is the June through December period. And it's always a lot of fun. I always enjoy doing this. It's fun to have the conversations with you and the rest of the team about who should be awarded these awards each year, and then think back a little bit about each of them and why they made such a big difference in this past year.
It does feel like the end of the year for MacStories, and in fact, I believe this year, sort of the wrap up, as you said, it's coming a week earlier than we usually do. We usually do it around the 17th or the 18th of December, a few days before the Christmas break. But this year, also because we got some help by Nilan and Jonathan, we were able to get it done a week in advance. So, we can focus on other things before we take a bit of a break for the holiday season. And I'm super excited to introduce all of these winners for different categories. But before we get to the categories, let's talk about the Lifetime Achievement Award winner, which this year is Pixelmator.
Yes.
Why are we picking Pixelmator, John? You wrote about this on MacStories.
I did. And one of the things that for me was fun to do was to go back and look at the announcements from when Pixelmator first came out, which are no longer on the internet. I had to go in the Wayback Machine to really dig into the details in the original blog post. But this app really struck out onto new territory in the world of apps, because when it was first introduced on the Mac in 2007, we're in an era when the iPhone was, just coming out. We didn't have an iPad, but we also still had things like Adobe, which is an expensive subscription service for editing images. There weren't a lot of other choices besides things like that. There were other apps, and there are plenty of them out there now, but Pixelmator really stood out because it was a one-time fee that was relatively inexpensive, and it did a lot of what you could do with something like Photoshop. Now, it really, a lot of people talk about Pixelmator being a Photoshop replacement. It really isn't. I mean, what it is a Photoshop replacement for people who don't need everything that Photoshop does, and that's very much someone like me, because I use an app like Pixelmator. Now I use Pixelmator Pro to edit some of the images that appear on MacStories. I don't need a lot of the really sophisticated tools, but over time, Pixelmator has really grown to adopt a lot of those too. So it's been an interesting evolution. The initial app came out on the Mac, as I said. About in 2014, it moved to the iPad. The iPad had been out for a while, but Pixelmator brought it over to the iPad, where it was one of the very first apps that was an image editor that supported layers, which were pretty uncommon on iOS at the time, if not completely non-existent at that point. And then a year later, it came out on the iPhone. And from there, what I guess to me was interesting looking back was that Pixelmator was billed as an app that took advantage of the latest technologies on the Mac in 2007 and was focused on things like processing on the GPU to speed things up. And when you look at Pixelmator today, you look at both Pixelmator, which is still available on the iPhone and the iPad, and then you look at apps like Pixelmator Pro on the Mac and Photomator, that is still kind of the theme of Pixelmator. They focus on using the GPU to do things very quickly. And it's really allowed them to push into areas like machine learning with super resolution and some of the other techniques that they use to edit images using machine learning models very quickly. And so that, to me, it's a legacy that both started out as very innovative for the platforms when it first appeared, but also it's one that had the foresight to really be an app that today is still at the forefront of technology in terms of image editing. And I think that foresight really has given the app a longevity that deserves the Lifetime Achievement Award.
Absolutely, absolutely, and it is well deserved. As you said, the team that's been constantly innovating and implementing the latest APIs and Apple technologies. So, Pixelmator Lifetime Achievement Award. Congratulations to the Pixelmator team. Let's move on to the other categories of MacStories Selects, and we're going to leave the App of the Year as last, as always.
All right.
Let's start with Best New App. Now, this is obviously a really interesting category because we review a lot of apps on a weekly basis, and it doesn't happen often. I think, as I wrote in my section, that a new feature of iOS or iPadOS creates a whole new market, a whole new segment of software on the App Store. But that's exactly what happened this year in iPadOS 17. With support for USB video class devices, or UVC. And this means the ability to use your iPad's display as the screen for a connected camera, like a webcam or a DSLR, or a video game console. And that is why the best new app for the 2023 MacStories Selects Awards is Orion by Lux, the developers of Halide, the popular camera app. Now, you may have seen, since September, plenty of apps that let you turn your iPad's display, that let you turn your iPad into a display for a connected video game console like a Nintendo Switch or a Steam Deck,
right,
or just use it as a monitor for something else. But Orion, in our opinion, was the best of its kind because of the elegant design, the performance, the fact that Orion was quickly updated to support a wide range of capture cards and HDMI dongles that allow you to turn your iPad into a display for, say, a Nintendo Switch, or in my case, even an ROG Ally as a gaming PC, or a Game Boy camera that I wrote about on MacStories. There was also the design of Orion, which was delightfully retro-inspired by the long history of video game consoles and packaging from the 80s. But also the raw performance of Orion. The fact that it comes with a built-in native upscaling mode for 4K that is powered by on-device machine learning, allowing you to play Nintendo Switch games 4K in real time on your iPad's display with no latency whatsoever. It's just incredible. And so the combination of those three factors, and the fact that this was a brand new category this year on the App Store, turning your iPad into a monitor, especially a big iPad Pro with the mini LED display, makes Orion, in our opinion, the best new app of 2023.
Yeah, Orion is really great. And I constantly come up with new ways of using it and ideas for ways that it can be integrated with various workflows, whether it's just having fun playing a video game, like you said, or maybe you're using it for more serious work, monitoring a photo shoot or something like that. All right, Federico, I think we should mention a couple of the runners-up, too, because there's so many good apps every year, new apps, that we felt it would be important to have at least a couple of runners-up to talk about. And the one that I want to mention is Chronicling by Rebecca Owen, because Chronicling really was one of those apps that I didn't expect to be as great as it was. Not for any particular reason other than the fact that when I first saw it, I thought, oh, this is just another habit tracker. And as you probably would agree, I think there are certain categories of apps on the App Store where eventually the category kind of coalesces around a certain set of features, and they all become kind of a blur and very samey. And I think that that's kind of true with habit trackers because they lend themselves really well to Swift UI, and a lot of people have been making them in recent years. And it's not to say that any of them are particularly bad. It's just that there wasn't a lot of innovation happening. And then along came Chronicling, which actually does something unexpected, which is it can be used for habit tracking, but it's actually a lot more than a habit tracker because you can track literally everything or anything with chronicling because it works on this concept of creating categories, which are the types of things that you're tracking, and then events, which are the actual things that you're tracking. And Rebecca's done a fantastic job of creating a really amazing design that does a great job of allowing you to visualize anything you're tracking, whether it's, how often you're reading a book, whether you're exercising, whether you're remembering to take your vitamins. I mean, it could be just about anything, but it's easy to get information in and it looks fantastic once it's in there. So we wanted to mention Chronicling by Rebecca Owen because this is an app that really came out of nowhere, I think, because it was a debut app for Rebecca. It was her first app on the App Store this year, and amazing job with this app.
Yeah, and I also wanted to mention as runner-up for Best New App, Tears of the Kingdom Travel Guide by previous MacStories Selects Award winner, indie developer Jeffrey Cooken, previously won with Noir a couple of years ago as a Safari extension. And Tears of the Kingdom Travel Guide, I mean, for a game as massive as Tears of the Kingdom, something that we didn't think it was possible, that Nintendo was going to replicate the success of Breath of the Wild and make it better and bigger in every single regard, you need a tool like Tears of the Kingdom Travel Guide, which is this incredibly comprehensive sort of combination of a mapping tool for the vast world of Hyrule and a database for all kinds of locations, points of interest, shrines, puzzles, inventory, armor, weapons, but also like a task manager in that you can create tasks and reminders for yourself for things you want to do in the game, for the hundreds of side quests and adventures that sort of follow along the main story of Tears of the Kingdom. It's just an incredible, rich, and powerful tool to assist you in your exploration of Hyrule. And it's also a modern iOS and iPadOS app with a modern design, integration with shortcuts, widgets, the clipboard, all kinds of things that really make this an incredible combination of the two things I love most, which is solid native iOS experiences and Zelda. So for these reasons, it is also a runner-up for Best New App of 2023.
All right, Federico, let's move on to our Best App Update category. And this one goes to Sequel 2.0. This is a category where we look at an app that has gotten a significant update that has really changed the course of the app. And really, this is one that we didn't have to debate about at all because we knew immediately that it was going to be Sequel, because this was a great app that really took it up to a whole new level with 2.0, because Roman, who's the developer, integrated all sorts of incredible features that really, really made this a polished app that is perfect for tracking television, movies, video games. It's really an all-in-one package. And what really changed with the update are things, especially the TV tracking, I think is where this app has really taken off in the last year. It's got, the ability to show you what's coming up next with your shows, your next episode, as well as seasons of shows that are coming up. It's got integration with Just Watch, so you can see which streaming services that you can watch something on. It's got cast and crew information for movies. It's got a lot of interesting stuff. And then it even got the 2.0 came out in the spring, but in the fall, Roman added the ability to sync with Tracked. So you can track your stuff across multiple instances using Track TV, which is a very popular API for tracking, TV and movie watching. This app has really taken off in 2023, and I can't wait to see what Roman does with it next. So congratulations, Roman, on Best App Update of 2023.
Congratulations, Roman. Really, really a fantastic update. I also want to mention the runner-up for Best App Update, which is Long Play 2.0, both 2.0 versions in this category. Long Play by Adrian Schoenig. Now, long play is a very specific type of music utility for a very specific type of music listener. And that is the kind of person who still enjoys listening to full albums in their entirety, from start to finish, as the artist intended, so to speak. And long play has been around for a while, but really version 2 introduced a couple of things that we wanted to call out here on MacStories Selects. The app still launches to this beautiful grid of all albums from your music library, whether you're using the music app with your personal collection or you're using Apple Music and you're saving stuff from Apple Music to your library. But now in version 2, there's the ability to create custom collections. So you can either stay in the default screen that shows you all of your albums with multiple sorting and criteria, but you can also create custom collections for, say, groups of albums, or, I don't know, albums from the same artist, or albums that have a common theme. And for example, I created collections for all of my favorite Oasis albums, or all of my favorite Death Cab for Cutie albums. And that's a very cool way to sort of, wanting to listen to a full album, but from a specific subset of albums. And the other feature in version 2.0 is the Infinite Album Shuffle, which, as the name suggests, it will start playing an album. It'll play an album in its entirety, but then it's going to shuffle another album for you. Right. And you're going to listen to that album in full. So Long Play 2.0, if you are using the music app, this doesn't work with Spotify. It works with music and Apple Music. Go check this out, especially if you are the type of person who, maybe you enjoy playlists and recommendations, but really you have your favorite albums and you want to listen to them in full. Long Play 2.0, runner-up for Best App Update of 2023.
This episode of App Stories is brought to you by Vitally. Customer success teams today are facing a problem. How do they connect customer data back to their work? Vitally changes that. It's a new kind of customer success platform, an all-in-one collaborative workspace that combines your customer data with all of the capabilities you expect from today's project management and work platforms, because it's designed for today's customer success team. That's why Vitally operates with unparalleled efficiency, improves net revenue retention, and delivers best-in-class customer experiences. It's the solution to helping your customer success team keep a better pulse on your customers, which maximizes productivity, visibility, and collaboration. You can boost your bottom line by driving more revenue per customer with Vitally. And if you take a qualified demo of Vitally, get a free pair of AirPods Pro. So, if you're a customer success decision maker actively seeking CS solutions, working at a B2B software as a service company with 50 to 1,000 employees, and you're willing to explore changing customer success platforms, if you already have one in place, schedule your call by visiting vitally.io/appstories to get that free pair of AirPods Pro. That's vitally.io/appstories for a free pair of AirPods Pro when you schedule a qualified meeting. Our thanks to Vitally for their support of App Stories. All right, Federico, should we move on to the Best New Feature Award?
Yes, and I'll take this one.
All right, very good.
The best new feature for the 2023 MacStories Selects Awards is Things Shortcuts Support. You wrote about this at the beginning of 2023, John, and this feature has only been growing on us ever since. Things as the best shortcuts integration I've ever seen from a third-party app on Apple platforms. It's as easy as that, in my opinion. It's not just that Culture Code took an app, a task manager that whose previous automation features revolved around URL schemes, and they had an action to create a new task with shortcuts. They took it and they expanded it, right? They launched this suite of actions. But it's not just the sheer number of actions that they have, it's what they do. And Culture Code essentially took every single aspect of the Things experience, from creating tasks, to modifying them, to finding them, to searching them, to opening specific views of the app from shortcuts.
Yep.
They made almost every single interaction of Things something that you can automate with shortcuts. And they went even beyond that with the ability to have some sort of contextual awareness of what you're doing in Things. Things was, I believe, the first app to pioneer this sort of new kind of shortcuts action, which is retrieving the current selection from the frontmost window of Things. And this works on the iPhone, it works on the iPad, it works on the Mac, of course. But this allows you to sort of get the task that is currently selected and perform something on it contextually. So whether you want to use this with the action button on an iPhone 15 Pro, or whether you want to put together a shortcut on your iPad, because maybe you pinned that shortcut to your dock, now you have a way to see what is currently selected in Things. And that allows you to effectively build your own custom enhancements for the app. It's like having the superpower to design a custom context menu for the currently selected task in Things. And combine that with the ability to have properties for variables based on your Things tasks. You can extract metadata like task creation or notes or due dates, all kinds of properties of a task you can access with shortcuts. This kind of extensive and deep and modern integration with shortcuts is the kind of feature that other developers should be inspired by, in our opinion. And for all these reasons, we believe Things shortcut support is the best new feature of 2023 and something other developers should aspire to implement in their apps as well.
Yes, congratulations to Cultured Code, because this has really become probably one of the apps that I use the most with shortcuts, because I now have projects that get set up on a schedule every single week where it's all a series of shortcuts actions from Things that fire off on a schedule on my Mac using Lingen X, which is also a fantastic Mac utility. All right, Federico, I want to mention one of our runners-up, which is Mercury Weather and its new trip forecasts feature. This is a really cool feature because Mercury Weather is a newish weather app that we'll talk about a little bit more later. But trip forecasts is a feature where you go into the UI for finding a particular city and seeing what its weather is, and you add it as a trip. And it's super simple to do. It really solves a problem that I think people will understand right away once they try to use it, because if you have a trip coming up, what you'll probably start doing several days before the trip is checking the weather of where you're going. Am I going to need to bring, a raincoat? Is it going to be cold? What kind of clothes should I bring with me? And so you flip back and forth between the weather where you are at home and where you're going on your trip. And then, or maybe, you add that location, that trip location, to your list of cities, and then you never really delete it. And eventually you just have a weather app full of a bunch of different cities that aren't really relevant to you once your trip is over. And what Trip Forecast does is it allows you to add a particular destination for a particular period of time. And then as the forecast data approaches and you see the graphs in Mercury Weather, it shows what the weather is going to be when you're in that new location. So you might see this little odd break in the graph, but that's because, I'm going to New York City and it's a lot colder there than it is in North Carolina. And so you'll see for those 2 days that I'm planning my trip, what the weather is going to be like in advance of actually leaving. And then you'll see once it's in the middle of the graph, you'll see what the weather is back at home again when you'll be back home, which is exactly what you really want. And even better, they disappear from the list once, the time period has passed and your trip is over. So you don't have that clutter that you have to remember to go clean up later. So it's a really nicely done, super well designed feature that I've really enjoyed using. I find it really particularly good for short trips because it's one of those things you don't have to do as much planning. You just set it up very quickly once and it takes care of itself.
Yeah. Really, really good feature that I want to set up next summer or whenever I'm gonna go on a trip somewhere. And this is really a good example of how you can turn something as sometimes boring like checking the weather into a feature that's different from what you would typically expect. Right. Speaking of Mercury Weather, this is also the winner for the best design category. Mercury Weather is really a great example, I think, of how you, like I said, of how you can turn something as trivial and sometimes boring, like checking the weather conditions and forecasts, into a beautiful, good-looking, accessible piece of software that really shines on Apple platforms, whether it's the iPhone, iPad, or the Mac, where the app even integrates with the menu bar. The use of gradients and colors for different weather conditions, the iconography, how you can at a glance immediately tell whether it's going to be cold out there over the next few days or over the next few hours. The way that Mercury Weather is laid out on the iPhone on a compact screen, making use of this cards layout, or on the iPad, where it really extends horizontally. It's an app that looks fantastic on any Apple device. And it's a reason why I have been using Mercury Weather as my weather app lately, even though the Apple Weather app has plenty of data points now and is in fact is a richer experience than Mercury Weather when it comes to raw data and different categories like the checking the moon state, for example. Right. Mercury Weather doesn't have that. However, it comes with this more intuitive sort of design that is a distillation of all the data you may want to know about the weather. And that is why, it really stood out to us as a great example of modern design on Apple platforms, iPhone, iPad, and the Mac. And so we selected it as best design for 2023. Congratulations, Mercury Weather.
Yes, congratulations. And I want to shout out the Watch app too, because I find that the large complication that I've added to my Apple Watch is probably the most readable weather widget that I've used of the many that I've tried. I mean, the Watch app is quite good too. Our runner-up in this category, Federico, is Matter, the Read Later app, which has been my Read It Later app for a little over a year now, I think it has at this point. And what I love about this app is that it's more than just about processing links and saving them in a database. It really does understand readers and understand the reading experience and make the reading experience absolutely top-notch. Now, I love using this app on my iPad mini more than anything else, but it works great on every platform, especially the iPhone and the iPads. It's an app that really takes reading to heart and has great. It doesn't have endless choices for how you set it up, but it has great choices, all the typography and the spacing and all that, plus the various options for sorting and filtering, which I think go beyond what you would typically see in an app like this. And I've loved it. I've continuing to use it. So congratulations to Matter, our runner-up in the best design category.
Yeah. I want to talk about the best watch app category now. And the award goes to Broadcasts by Steve Troughton-Smith.
Yeah, an app that actually came out last December for those of you listening, but came out after we picked last year's awards. So I want to clarify that for people.
Yeah, and we selected it specifically for the Apple Watch because of the design that really takes advantage of the full screen of the Apple Watch now. Broadcasts is an internet radio app, and internet radio, as Jonathan wrote in his MacStories Selects piece for the site, is a bit of an odd beast in that it's a very fragmented space. Sometimes there's broadcasters that have their own website or they have their own native apps, and sometimes those apps are terrible. And so if you can have this sort of unified experience that allows you to set up your own custom stations with a streaming URL, whether that's radio or maybe a podcast that streams live, such as, the folks at Relay FM do. We do it for Connected, for example. And that's something you can also add to Broadcast. I've been using Broadcasts for the past few years too. I have my pinned selection of my favorite Italian radio stations. And the ability to stream this internet radio now on the watch. Maybe you go out and about and you have an Apple Watch Ultra or an Apple Watch with cellular and you have your AirPods and the Apple Watch. You can just tap a button and you hit play and you can listen to the radio as you're walking the dog with your Apple Watch and AirPods. It's really well done. And the fact that there's the album artwork as fetched using the Shazam integration on iOS, is displayed front and center on the Apple Watch. And you have these controls that extend to the edges of the screen. Really made it, in our experience, a great example of what developers can do on watchOS now. So congratulations, Steve Troughton-Smith, for winning the Best Watch App category with broadcasts.
Yeah, this is a fantastic app that I use a lot myself, and I give Steve a lot of credit because I know a lot of Apple Watch apps that when they're running on cellular only kind of start falling apart, but broadcasts doesn't, because very often over the course of the summer, I would go out for a long walk or a run or something while you guys were doing connected, and I'd listen in, but all I have with me is my Apple Watch Ultra, and it never missed a beat. I always was able to listen the entire show and had no issues at all. So a great app for that too, if you are someone who goes out with an Apple Watch but not your iPhone. All right, our runner-up in this category is Flighty, and Flighty is an app that has been known for its design for a very long time, but it didn't have an Apple Watch app until this fall, and it really brought those design chops to the Apple Watch in full color, because this is an app that really takes advantage of watchOS 10. It's got a card-like interface where you can see a list of the flights that you're tracking, and then tap into one of them, and then you'll have cards for the arrival and departures and things like that. Plus, it's got great complications, both a large complication that shows you the progress of a flight that's happening at a particular time, and small ones, which do the same, but with a more limited UI. And it's a combination of just very clear and colorful design that does a great job of really giving you a sense for what's going on with the flights that you're tracking, whether it's ones that you're tracking because you have a friend coming into town or you're going somewhere yourself. So if you haven't checked out Flighty in a while, give it a look, because the Watch app is fantastic. So congratulations to the Flighty team on runner-up for Best Watch App of 2023.
All right, tell me about the Best Mac app, John.
All right, Federico. This one was super easy for me because it's MimeStream. And MimeStream is an email app by the team at MimeStream that works with Gmail. So this is not an app that's for everybody. It really is, not even all of my email addresses work with it. Fortunately, all but one of mine are Gmail accounts. So it's been fantastic for me. What it does is it takes all of the features that you expect from Gmail and brings them into a native UI. And I can't tell you what a breath of fresh air that is, because it's fantastic. There have been a lot of apps over the years that are essentially web wrappers around Gmail that attempt to improve Gmail's UI, and many of them have, but they've also always felt very much like a web wrapper. But that's not what MimeStream is. MimeStream is built by a team that's led by someone who used to work on the Mail app at Apple, and that really shows. There's a lot of echoes in terms of the design choices and feature set here, but it goes further because it takes advantage of all the things that you get along with Gmail. Things like filtering, things like labels, all the stuff that is the automatic categorization, all the stuff that you expect from Gmail is here. And it's using the very latest Google APIs. Google has changed its APIs over time, and some apps are still using older APIs that don't offer as much flexibility to developers. But MimeStream is using the very latest, which allows it to do things that you might not have expected would even be possible using a webmail service in an app. But it does them incredibly well and does them in a fantastically designed app. I'm really, really excited about the prospect of an iOS and iPadOS app here, because I've heard that they're working on it. I don't know when it's coming, but MimeStream is so good on the Mac that I'm willing to wait and work in different apps on my Mac and on my other devices because it's just that good. Yeah. Congratulations to MimeStream for Best Mac App of 2023.
And the runner-up in this category is Bartender 5. Bartender came out with a major update for macOS Sonoma a few months ago, and it introduced all these new options for displaying different types of menu bars depending on different conditions on your Mac. Nileanne wrote about this on MacStories Go, so go check out her story. if you have a moment. It's a really good overview of what's changing in Bartender, which is really still this incredible utility to take full control of your menu bar. Now, depending on different conditions, it's really this indispensable tool, especially if you have a laptop, if you have a MacBook Air. And so that screen real estate is at a premium on that kind of computer. But maybe you want to use multiple menu bar apps, or you want to have different status icons for different scripts or utilities that you have running on your Mac. So Bartender 5, this great example of what developers can still do on macOS as a platform, now with even more settings to control the look and the functionality of your menu bar. So congratulations, Bartender 5, for being a runner-up for Best Mac App in 2023.
Yeah, Bartender 4 was a winner just a couple of years ago.
Yes. Now, before we do the App of the Year, John, tell me about the Reader's Choice Award.
All right. So the Reader's Choice Award is an app that's selected by MacStories readers. We have Club MacStories readers in particular. We open it up to nominations club-wide, and then ultimately the finalist is chosen by in Discord by the Club MacStories Plus and Premier members. And this year's winner is Ivory, the Mastodon client from Tapbots, which really comes as no surprise. I mean, we concluded last year. I think last year when you and I were recording this episode, we were in the midst of all of the Twitter drama. And we had just recently moved off of Twitter and moved the MacStories team over to Mastodon. And at the time, in December of 2022, there were some apps, but there weren't a lot of great apps. And Tapbots obviously has a lot of experience building a social media app, having built Tweetbot for years. And that app, this is a spiritual successor to that app. It shares a lot of the design language with that app, but it is thoroughly a Mastodon client through and through. And it's a fantastic app that has really made using Mastodon a lot easier because it's both customizable and designed incredibly well to make it an enjoyable experience that's self-contained in the app on all platforms, the iOS, iPadOS, and the Mac. So congratulations to Ivory by Tapbots, our Reader's Choice Award winner of 2023.
And Ivory, we now move on to the App of the Year category. Ivory is also runner-up for App of the Year for all the reasons that John mentioned. Ivory is this incredible experience that redefined accessing and using Mastodon on Apple devices, both on iOS and later on the Mac. When I think of Mastodon on my iPad or on my phone, I think of Ivory. I know that the whole point of the Fediverse and having a decentralized social network is the ability to use whatever client you want to use to access Mastodon, and that's fine. But I truly believe that on Apple platforms, Ivory comes with that special something that is hard to quantify. Mm-hmm. It's the same special something that we have discussed before for apps like Reader or apps like Things. It's a combination of design, performance, the way that elements are laid out on screen, the functionality, the reliability of the experience. And Ivory, because of the experience, the over a decade-long experience from designer Mark Jardine and developer Paul Haddad, their previous work on Tweetbot, you can tell that this is an app made by an expert team of developers, by folks who truly know what it should feel like to scroll a reverse chronological timeline. And it's only getting better, right? With the latest update, Ivory got full support for hashtags, so you now have a better way to discover different topics on Mastodon. It really is one of the apps that defined 2023 for Apple users, in our opinion, and that is why we picked it as the runner-up for App of the Year. But the App of the Year, John, this year, and I would say finally, the award goes to Widgetsmith.
Yes.
By developer _David Smith. To be fair, as I wrote in my story, we could have probably given out this award to Widgetsmith 3 years ago when iOS 14 came out and Widgetsmith went viral with home screen widget and, the whole home screen aesthetic trend.
Yes.
We could have given out that award 3 years ago and it would have been absolutely well-deserved. But the thing is, I kind of prefer it that we are awarding Widgetsmith now with iOS 17. after the app reached over 100 million App Store downloads.
That's a mind-blowing number of people.
It's a mind-blowing number of people for an app made by a single person that we both know well, but that's beyond the scope of this award. It's made by a single person who's been constantly improving and iterating on this app and sort of being at the forefront of the widget revolution on Apple platforms. And this year, Widgetsmith went sort of above and beyond what we thought would be possible with interactive widgets on iOS and iPadOS and watchOS, of course. But on iOS and iPadOS, with the addition of interactive widgets on the home screen, the lock screen on the iPad, and Standby on the iPhone, Widgetsmith has shown how you can have, sure, you can customize your home screens. You can still put some text or a photo or your calendar events or your reminders in there, but you can go beyond that with this kind of sort of mini app experiences that really turn Widgetsmith into this kind of modular playground for specific functionalities that you want to put on your home screen or your lock screen. For example, you can flick through photos on your home screen thanks to Widgetsmith interactive photo widget. Or you can have an interactive calendar. For example, one of the latest updates to the app introduced a medium-sized monthly calendar that lets you tap on different days of the month on the right side and view events for that selected day on the left side of the widget. All of these from your home screen. But David Smith went beyond that with some incredible widget for music lovers, for Apple Music and music users on iOS. You can start playing either in regular playback mode or in shuffle mode, entire albums or playlists from your home screen with the curated selection of albums and playlists that you choose in Widgetsmith's settings. And even better than that, there's a kind of a throwback widget, which is a CoverFlow music collection widget that sort of harkens back to the days of the iPod and iTunes with a CoverFlow UI that lets you flick through this 3D carousel of your favorite albums and playlists, all done directly from the home screen. And then, of course, there's the Standby integration, the fact that you can fully choose how these widgets should look like. You have complete control over colors, fonts, sizes, and you can even mix and match different widgets in the same one with some specific multi-widget interactive tools that you can design in Widgetsmith. So we really felt like Widgetsmith 3 years ago kind of invented this whole idea of design your own widget. And over the course of the past 3 years, lots of apps have copied the Widgetsmith approach. But in iOS 17, David Smith showed once again how the modern widget kit technology, combined with SwiftUI and all of the latest Apple frameworks and API, allow developers to put together these brand new kinds of experiences that are unlike anything else on other platforms. And for all these reasons, we thought it was time to recognize Widgetsmith as the App of the Year for MacStories Selects 2023.
Yeah, congratulations to David on this award. You're right. It's a long time coming. And, I think I really like what you did in your story, contextualizing this, because, David's not new to this game by any stretch of the imagination. He had been a developer for a decade working on these things and putting himself in the position to have the kind of success he's had with Widgetsmith. There was certainly an element of luck going viral the way he did, but I'm sure that this app would have been successful regardless of the luck that he had in it going viral. And it's things like all of the watch stuff that he did for years that really made coming up with widgets easier for him than it was for most people, because he was already deeply familiar with a lot of the frameworks that Apple used to build widgets when they first came, and was ready for those then and also ready for the interactivity when it came this year. And I remember this past WWDC sitting with him in the lobby of your hotel and talking a little bit about interactive widgets. And he was clearly just like buzzing with excitement about them and had already had some ideas of doing things like tapping elements in a widget to display another view, which is something that is very much in Widgetsmith today. But over the summer, he obviously had a ton of other ideas beyond what those that we talked about at the time, because there's just so much depth to this app and what you can do with the widgets on your home screen and on your lock screen. It's just absolutely amazing to me, and it's a well-deserved award for App of the Year of 2023.
All right. I think we did it, John. We did it once again.
Here we are at the end of our year, and then with a bunch of award winners. I will be contacting award winners very shortly to get addresses to mail out these awards so that they can hopefully, for most people at least, get there before the holidays. I want to thank our sponsor for this episode again. That's Vitally. You can find me and Federico over at MacStories.net. We're on Mastodon. Just go to vitici.macstories.net or johnvorhees.macstories.net to find a way to follow us there. And we're on Instagram. And soon Federico is going to be on Threads along with me once again. Yes. So on both of those spots, you can look for us. Federico is at Vitici. That's VITICCI. And I'm at John Voorhees. JOHNVOORHEES. Talk to you next week, Federico.
Ciao, John.